wearing a black t-shirt, and that is for two reasons. One, because I really support Cody Barber with Barber Equipment. He sold us all of our Barons and a couple other various Marcrest items. But two, I'm here to commemorate the annual death of dry hay weather in Northern Ohio. It is done. We have temperatures dropping into the 30s at night, daytime highs of 60 or below, heavy dews. I mean, it is just a tragedy attempting to get hay dry right now. And most years, I'm out here standing in this field. We have some beautiful third cut alfalfa orchard ready to go. The dew is so heavy and the hay is wet and it's already 11:30. And I know in the past I would have been calling my dad, probably on the verge of tears, just screaming, do we roll it over with the rake? Do we ted it again? Do we just give up? Do we sell the farm? What do we do? This hay just will not get dry. These are some of the frustrations that have been remedied with our purchase of 2 Chinook Hay Dryers. So today we are going to be baling 120 acres of some phenomenal alfalfa orchard mix, and I'm going to try to focus in and show you guys what's going on with the Chinook Hay Dryer over at the Spencer farm. Oh, what did I say? It's like 11:30 now. We'll get the balers rolling up here. The hay is honestly probably 27-28% if I had to guess, sitting in the windrow. So we'll wait a couple hours, try to get it down to sub 25, and we'll get the small square balers up here rolling. We'll get them bundled, we'll get them hauled over, we'll start drying it, and I'll discuss some numbers, time, some volume, and everything with you guys. So it's gonna be a good video today. We got out here and we raked this stuff yesterday. We used our Kuhn rakes and we were running actually literally at an idle, just a pinch over an idle, so we didn't stall the tractors when we were trying to pull the rakes up at the end. So very low RPMs, and what we did is we decided to actually rake it without a bunch of dew on it so we weren't trapping dew in the windrow. And we did a really nice job. We maintained a lot of leaves. Very happy with the quality of this hay going into the windrow, and we didn't trap a whole bunch of crazy dew moisture in there, which we've done in the past. And the dryer bailed us out, but I think it just made it a little bit tougher on us, making some unevenness. So if we weren't planning on using the dryers today, we would have to roll this over or something. The bottom is a little damp, and I think it would take forever for that dampness to creep out of that windrow. And by the time you wait forever today, the sun starts going down at 6:50. When are you even going to bale? Especially with small squares. I mean, small squares can only do so much. I just like to reiterate, I can specifically remember times in the past where I'm calling my dad and we're like, we don't even know what we're saying. We're just yelling because we're so frustrated because it won't get dry. That's the hardest part about doing anything. The hay just has to get dry. Me and my dad are actually pretty jolly today. It's like, man, it ain't going to get too dry. Okay, we'll just go flash dry it. There you go. It saves a whole bunch on your mental health, put it that way. Justin and Dan are performing the windrow test. They pack it in a bucket. Justin's got his handy dandy windrow moisture meter, and I'm guessing it's over 30%. Get some from the bottom.
Yeah, a bit bottom in there.
All right, 26. Pressure is very important. Ready, Dan? You got it ready?
Yeah.
It's very important. I don't know. 26, baby. Jamming in there again. With 26 keeping a bundle, PJ? 31. Ooh. Run. It says run away from it. 31.4. This is the dryer video, Pops.
Yeah?
You got anything to say?
It's going to be a valuable asset to have today.
I told them last year we would have just been screaming at each other because it'd be, do we roll it or ted it or just leave? Or
I know.
I mean, what do we even do here? What do we got going on? We got some moisture at the bottom, probably a little bit of ground moisture. Yeah, everything else is dry. And if we weren't relying on the dryer, we'd be mechanically flipping it or something, losing more leaf, wasting more time.
Losing color.
Yep. Made it to the time of baling. It is about 3 o'clock. We got the large squares rolling in. This is the hardest part of the whole day, is we got to dial in weights knowing we're gonna dry the hay. So we're gonna bale a couple. I think it's gonna be about 17 to 23%, which is not crazy. We were shooting for an end product of about a 45-pound bale. I gotta run through a little bit of math in my head, but we're probably gonna have them spit out like 48, 49-pound bales, dry it down, hopefully it hits 45. So I gotta go, I'll be back. We got the volume control crew here, me and PJ. What do we got?
15.6.
15.6? 15.8, man, that's nice. The unfortunate part about starting up balers after a while and also wet hay is we kind of got to let them do their own thing for about 20 bales because there's rust in the chamber and yada yada. It's got to equalize pressure, so we can't really make any adjustments right off the bat. We're getting a good idea of the moisture. What's the good side of the bale look like? 21.5. Wow. This is Northern Ohio, folks. This isn't Arizona. That's good quality.
It is.
All right, Justin, let's discuss, would that keep in a bundle, that moisture? Would it keep with preservative?
I think it'd be borderline if it was.
Yeah.
That 18.6, I think it kind of would.
I forgot to mention we have Jake running around the outside rounds with the large square. Those are going to be a whole different ball game, and obviously against the road it'll be fine, but we have some woods lines and stuff that we got to track them down. So this is the hard part because, you know, when it's wet, the weights are kind of all over the place. So we're just doing our best. But I want you guys to see the quality of the hay when we bale it wet is just insane. I mean, so much leaf. When we bale with some moisture, we'll look at the baler and there's not a stream of chaff underneath it just pouring out. We have made the executive decision. What have we probed? Roughly 14 to 21, right around there. So that means we are going to probably set the dryer at 15 minutes. Try to have the heat between 180 and 190 because that's a temperature where we sort of feel like we understand for a little bit. So 15-minute interval. We'll let a couple get to the end of the table, probe them again, and see what we do from there. So I'm probably going to use some type of clickbait title like how we make the best hay in the world. We don't make the best hay in the world, but I honestly think with the tools at our disposal, we make some of the best hay possible in Northern Ohio. So let's check out some of the quality of this. Oh my goodness. You don't really do that baling dry and keeping it in the bundle. This is really hard to do. You can do it on a very small scale from time to time, but trying to do it over 120 acres in one day or 240 in 2 days is just pretty much nearly impossible in this climate. So we are cheating it a little bit. We are baling it probably about 5% moisture points too high, and we're not worried because we're going to go flash dry it and it's all going to be good and everyone's going to be happy. We're actually, one of the benefits of drying this is we don't have to wait for this to sweat. Once we dry it, we'll send it to Florida. Like, Justin, what was that? Didn't we send a load off the dryer earlier this year? The truck,
right off the dryer.
The truck actually pulled in right to where the dryer is at. We loaded it right off the dryer. No complaints, right into a box fan. So that's what we love about it. What are we probing in the bundle, dude? 24. Alrighty, we'll do it. For the sake of telling the totality of the story, we got to get a little bit of Jericho hammering down in a large square. He did the outside rounds, and then we are also having him search and grab the double rows that we make with the rake just because they're a little bit wetter. But I think his time is about done. I love large squares, so let's see what kind of stuff we're making out of the back of this. Holy moly. So crazy, actually. I've never even seen alfalfa like this. How you doing in there? Good. All right, I'll get in the telehandler and we'll start picking up the bundles so we can go dry them. I think you're good to go. You did your job. For the sake of keeping this video at the point or on point or whatever, we skipped loading up this first load, the semi. Now Jake is out there loading up the trailers. I'm heading over to the dryer with Justin, who's big rigging it. Oh yeah. I can't even remember. I think we got maybe 735 bales on here. And we're gonna go get the dryer set up. We're under a little bit unique conditions right now because we still don't have a roof. So you're gonna see that we have to preload the cool down table before we get going, or else it doesn't work appropriately because it needs to be filled up for airflow and resistance. I'll explain that later. We'll get over there, we'll get unstrapped, we'll get loaded up, and you can see some of the barn getting built. The baler's finished that 120 acre piece in less than 2 hours, right? Yeah. Which is kind of crazy. So we sent them to the new farm, which is a little bit risky because you're supposed to be there knowing the moisture and everything, but because we have this dryer, we can sort of do stuff like that. We'll get over there, we'll probe it a little bit later today, and if it's really wet, we'll just dry it longer. If it's dry, we just won't dry it. So without these dryers, we probably would have never sent a fleet of balers over to a field that one of us hasn't checked. That's just another benefit of this. We're leaking a little, huh? So this is the new barn here, and this is the home of the Chinook drying hay dryers. Earlier this year, we were just pulling in the inside, unloading, getting back on the concrete, but the builders are here, and it's, oh man, it's really wadded up. Earlier today, those 80-foot trusses weren't right there, so oh boy. They really kind of got us there on those trusses, didn't they? So we got the first load here, and we'll get going. So my plan yesterday was not for these trusses to be here, and we were gonna pull the trucks up here, and we're gonna have a doorway over here on this, I guess we'll call it the overhang, the wing. We're just gonna come in and out, boom, boom. But that plan is done, so I guess we'll figure something else out. We tried to design this with accessibility and mobility in mind. So we have extra large doorways here to feed the first dryer, in the middle to unload both the dryers, and in the far end to feed the far dryer. So I guess we'll just use this entrance the whole time and we'll get it done. So here we have Justin in front of the two inline Chinook Hay Dryers. We went with this design just because we thought it would fit in the overhang of the style barn that we're already familiar with. So we have the western Chinook dryer feeding to the center, the eastern Chinook dryer feeding to the center, and then we have both of them feeding the same spot. It's the whole idea. So we are pulling hay away from here, feeding on both ends, and you take over from here, PJ.
Well, normally we put the wet hay down there and we'll load it on. The dry hay goes down there, and then we got to transfer it till the roof's built, but eventually we'll just be able to move it over to another wing or an area and itemize.
It's been a logistical effort this year because we can't store anything here.
Yeah.
So there's been no roof.
And cleaning off the table, clean that off, and then we got to blow that out and clean that off, clean all the chaff and stuff out of it if it gets wet. So you can see that the needles eventually settle down. So before we do anything, we'll get the motors running and we'll lift the needles out.
So these units are all self-contained in these Conex boxes. Yep, cool. So we'll head in there. Well, before it gets too loud, I guess let's see, we have our huge blower that actually runs the cool down table. It pulls ambient air. That's right there, giant piping up underneath, you can see. So that's why when I mentioned that the table has to be full for it to be working, that's why, because you have your air opposite intake. You have the air pushing out over there, and if there's any holes or anything, it'll just wash out over here and fly up, and it won't actually go try to make resistance going up through the hay. So we need to have this table full for that to be working. So you have your giant intake, then you have everything feeding out of the Conex box here, your hydraulic lines and your wires down there. Of course, getting a phone call, 1 second. All right, so manufacturers of the Chinook recommend that you have at least one side of your Conex box open when this puppy's running. And that's especially important when it was hotter during the summer.
Yeah.
When, you know, what is nearly 90 degrees.
We've got a 9.3 liter Perkins diesel. It's about 480 horse.
Ooh, it's a puppy.
Yeah, so then it's running a generator, and then its exhaust air is going into this box here, in which this box is where the heating elements are. You can see we got one here. There's 4 of them. We added 2. So we can turn these heating elements on from outside. So we adjust our temperature to what we like, try to keep it consistent.
So it's using the exhaust heat and additional elements.
And heating elements. So then it transfers, we got this big fan here which blows that through all the needles that go down into the hay.
Yep.
So basically you got your warm, your hot air there, sucks it through here and blows it right into the needles.
Right in the needles.
And then it's also got a self-contained hydraulic system that runs off the back. And that's pretty much what just goes up and down.
Yep. That's basically it. Yeah, it's a lot of technology, but the concept is fairly simple.
Very simple.
Okay, so not supposed to play around on these things. Very serious about. You need to lock it out if you get up in there, so I'm not gonna. But these are the needles he's talking about. So all these come down into the top of the hay, and you have a bottom set of needles that come up into the bottom of the hay, and they pretty much meet with each other right next to it. And we are blowing that hot air through each one of these holes, and that is forcing the moisture up out of the hay. So it kind of looks like something from the movie Saw, but it works, and you'll see that it works really well. The builders got us again.
They're not their fault.
They got us again. Oh man. Yeah, it's gonna hold. There too. Checking the oil. Are we ready to fire these up? Tells us it's not an auto. Then we'll hit run, and we haven't ran in about a month. Turned over a little bit harder, but it idles for, what is that, a minute 20 seconds, I think, and then you'll hear it power up at full bore, and that's when we can turn on the main connection and get electricity to everything. Once it's done idling, it does get pretty loud, so I would recommend ear protection probably if you're going to be around it a lot, but we'll be back over in the barn. It's not quite as bad, but get ready for it. The needles tend to settle down overnight as the hydraulic just leaks out of the cylinder leaks down. So we will go in here and we will manually pick those back up or out. There we go. Needles coming out. And there is a safety, nothing else in the machine will function while those needles are down. So you don't accidentally push your hay into down needles and just tear everything up. So I got that here, I'll go do that on that machine. And like I mentioned before, because there's no roof, we have to clean out the cool-down table every time. So we have to preload, I think, at least 4 sets of bundles. So after the first one gets drying, it pushes out when the cool-down table is full, and it has air resistance to go up through the hay. So we'll do that, that takes some time, and then eventually we'll just leave the end product on here so we don't have to mess around with this part. Justin loaded up. We have bundles turned 3 wide. It's about, I don't know, 8.5 foot, maybe a little under. Those are like 34-inch bales. Perfect. And I will manually push those over. With the in-feed ram, they call it. Back out. Voila! This is gonna be a big barn when it's tinned up. We had to get exceptionally high in the center so that we still had approximately 16 feet on the edges for that dryer to sit in there. And even then, they still had to do some modified trusses just to give us a little extra wiggle room. So this marks grab number 3. We now have 9 bundles on the machine, 2 on the cool down table. So we are almost ready to fire up, not quite. Alrighty, so we have preloaded 4 grabs onto this very first dryer By the time this next one pushes in to actually get dried, it'll about fill the table. There might be a couple inches remaining, but that's okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this machine in auto mode, and it's gonna do everything that I've been doing by itself and also initiate the drying process. So we'll pop it down here into auto. Justin and I made the executive decision. I don't think you guys are gonna be able to see the screen, so I'll just try to talk about what I'm doing. Made the executive decision that we're gonna probably dry this for 15 minutes to start. And once that first dried bundle makes it to the end of the table, then we will adjust if we have to. So we got 15 marked in there. I'm gonna hit cycle start. We're gonna be ready to go. There's a tiny little trigger on here. When Justin sets this bundle down on top of that, the machine knows that it's loaded and ready to be pushed in. And I believe it turns green up there. We have it set on, I think, a 30-second delay so the machine has time to get out of there. There we go. Hands free. The very first push, it takes a little bit because the needles aren't warmed up. It's a lot more fluid than that once we get going. So Justin can now set the next bundle, and theoretically he has 30 minutes to get back to this machine because you have 15 minutes of drying. That one pushes in, you have another 15 minutes, so it won't technically call for 63 more bales of hay for 30 more minutes. We'll repeat the same process over here. I don't need to show you guys it again, but I do want to talk about, once the machines are heated up, what temperature that the air is coming in at. Alrighty, we got the second one ready to go. We'll go check out the temperature. I like that Chinook painted these red because the contrast with super green hay looks awesome. Really good quality for Ohio. 10 minutes in the first cycle and our temperature is only 149 degrees. So what I'm gonna do is enable the 2 additional heaters and see if we can get that closer to 185, 190. It took Justin pretty much the entire semi-load to fill the cool down tables and fill the actual drying portion of the dryer. That he's caught up with the drying setup because we're on 15-minute intervals. We are just taking the trailers that are coming in, probably gonna load the wet hay right up over here so that the next driver that pulls in can just grab this empty truck and get on out of here. So that whole process took us quite a bit of time, unfortunately, because we had to preload the table. But now that we're rocking, it's pretty easy. And one guy can handle loading the dryer, unloading the trucks, and at a 15-minute interval, that same guy can also load dry hay back out, which we probably will never have to do again besides this round because we can't store the hay here, but we've done it in the past. Now, if you start doing a shorter flash dry, like 8 to 10 minutes, unloading trucks, loading the dryer, and unloading the dryers is pretty much all an operator can do. They don't really have much time to then also load dry hay back out on the trucks. Let's go ahead and get some moisture readings after it's been in the bundle for about 2 hours. I'm no hay expert, but it probably is already starting to sweat a little bit. I think hay almost starts to sweat immediately if it's gonna go through a sweat. 27, 21. So yes, these would never keep in a bundle. And I'm not gonna sit here and debate preservative, but with about as much confidence as I can probably have, don't believe this. Let me start over there. This stuff would definitely not keep in a bundle. And I don't want to start a huge debate online or anything because I do think preservatives have their place. I don't believe these would keep in a bundle with preservative either. This is really pushing some limits. We've never successfully kept 25% hay in a bundle. And also, if you were to do that and try to dump preservative to it, it's more expensive than running it through the dryer, the variable cost. And you also have to wait several months before you sell the hay because you don't even know if it's going to keep. With all 4 burners on, we are up to 178 degrees, so that's a lot better than 149. That might be the limit in this cooler weather. Not sure, it's still warming up a little bit. We're still only on the 2nd cycle. What's amazing, and if you would have told me that just forced air could blow moisture out of a bundle before we got these dryers, I would be very surprised and I would doubt you. But you can actually feel this bundle has not been dried yet. It's just sitting on the cool down table. But because that air is being forced up through it, you can feel it coming out the sides, and you can feel a little bit of moisture actually coming out the sides of these bales. Quite a bit there. So while we're waiting for the first dried batch to make it to the end of the cool down table to decide if the 15-minute interval is long enough for the moisture level that the hay was at, let's go over a few numbers here. I haven't actually wrote things down for other people to see in quite a while, so please excuse the childish handwriting. Anyway, so when my dad and I were running over costs to operate this dryer and if it was at all feasible and all that stuff you do before the bank usually lets you do anything, we were trying to break down the variable costs or the cost per bale it takes to actually dry hay. Now the fixed costs on these machines, that's quite the hurdle to get over. That's going to take a lot of years, maybe even a generation to even pay off and have fun using it. But as far as the actual cost per bale, we broke down, so between the operator and the machine and the telehandler, we have $150 an hour. I'm sure every operation could punch in a different number there. Some people think you could work cheaper, some people think you can't work that cheap, it's whatever. So you have operator plus machine at $150 an hour. The Perkins engines burn 16 gallons of diesel fuel per hour. So you have 16 gallons per hour times 2 for 2 machines at, we'll just make it easy, $3 per gallon for diesel. So you're spending $96 in diesel per hour of usage. So that's a hourly cost of $246. Now, if you're doing 10-minute cycles, that's 6 cycles per machine. So times 2, that's 12 cycles of 63 bales. That's 756 bales an hour. If you're doing 15-minute drying cycles like we are today, that's 4 cycles per hour. That's a total of 504 bales between both the dryers. And 20-minute cycles, that's 3 cycles per hour. That's 378. If you divide the 246 by 756 bales, or the other way around, you get 32 cents per bale on 10-minute cycles, 48 cents per bale on a 15-minute cycle, and 65 cents per bale on a 20-minute cycle. Now, I thought ahead and I thought a point of contention would be the operator plus machine at $150. So I went ahead and I lowered it dramatically to what some of you guys might think you're worth. You see on Facebook all the time people operating like skid steer work for $80 an hour or something, and then you just have hundreds of comments about how can you be so cheap. There are some farmers that are pretty cheap. Some guys work for nothing, so if you're one of them, I guess here's numbers for you. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to insult anyone. So I lowered that operator plus machine cost to $80 per hour, which honestly, if you've got an older machine and whatever, maybe you're not paying yourself, maybe you're an owner operator and you're doing it all yourself, so whatever time you want to have or however much you want to pay yourself per hour, that's your decision, not anyone else's. So if you lower that to 80, your fixed cost per hour is $176. So at 10-minute intervals, 176 going into that 756 bales is 23 cents a bale. At 15-minute intervals, it's 34 cents a bale. And at 20-minute intervals, it's 46 cents a bale. I know that a lot of you guys are using different types of preservatives and inoculants and everything, so you can compare those costs. At a 10-minute flash dry, that is probably hay that you can put preservative on, and you're probably going to be okay. At a 15-minute cycle time, I've discussed this with Justin and my dad, we probably wouldn't have been comfortable putting preservative on hay that we think we need to dry for 15 minutes. So take that as you wish. And at 20-minute cycle times, there is absolutely no way any preservative we've ever used is going to work on hay that we think we have to dry for 20 minutes. There's no way it was going to work. So you have to look at the cost, the cost per bale between this and your preservative. And also, some of the benefits of this is we know the dryer works. Sometimes the preservative you didn't put enough on, you put too much on, you wasted money, who knows. So there's that. You're not always certain the preservative is going to work, and sometimes you have to wait 8 weeks to realize, hey, can I ship this hay out, or it didn't quite keep the way we wanted. When we're done with this hay over here, it's ready for sale. I mean, customers can come pick it up tomorrow morning if they want. They can come pick it up right off the dryer. We are that confident in it because we'll go over here and we'll probe the bundles coming out, and they're going to be 14% or under. They're good to go. And we think that this dryer stops the sweating process of the hay. We think we force it through its own sweat and it's just done. There's no more cyclical action happening in the temperature. Our first marked bundle has made it to the end of the cool down table. Actually, one more cycle, but we'll start probing it now. You can see the little red flag on it, maybe not. And we'll probe it and see what moisture we're coming out at. Here's the first one we dried today, and it's also worth pointing out that this first bundle, we only had 2 of the heating elements on. So it was dried at like 149 degrees compared to the rest, which have been drying at right around 180 degrees. I think that's what we finally got up to. Now we are at 181 degrees. So that first bundle was dried for 15 minutes at almost 40 less degrees. So that will make a difference. You want to do the honors?
Tell me it says low.
I don't know. What do you think? All right, so this is the first dried one.
Oh yeah.
11, 8, 12. And so what was explained, these bundles dry from the inside out. So we will notice The center of the bales will sometimes be your lowest reading, and as you slowly pull out, it'll open up a little bit. But that's fine because the outside of these bundles, they see air. The inside sees nothing. 9.3, low, low.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. 12. Yep. Here's how Justin unloads the bundles that come off the dryer. And this is the very last one that has not been dried. And these have all been dried now. So they push out onto the concrete on both sides, and then we'll stick them over there and haul them out. And hopefully someday when there's a roof, we don't haul them out until they're ready to be sold. See, that bale's registering low, and look at the leaf. That's just, I mean, unheard of.
Someone did a good job.
Yeah, a couple people did. It's literally as green as a yard. That's awesome. This is what we call the Spencer farm. We have some fourth cutting out here that we really would like to go get. But at this point in time, it just wasn't quite as big as these other pieces. And I think we're gonna try to wait for a killing frost and take it off, because that's, I guess, the smart thing to do. I don't know. There's so many different philosophies on when you should take your last cutting of alfalfa. And I don't know who to believe, but it would be hard to see that rot over the winter. Oh boy. Okay, we'll film a little bit tomorrow. It's getting late. I gotta go get some other things done at a different field. But I think we'll finish it off with showing you a dried bundle that we pick up. We'll see bundle integrity after it goes to the dryer. And usually it's fine. When we start running into those 20-minute drying cycle times, I will be completely honest with you guys, the bundles get a little bit loose. We're not consistently trying to dry like over 26% hay. If we were in large squares, it'd be fine, but the bundles lose a lot of integrity. You can do it, it's just harder to move the bundles. So you have maybe a little bit more sag, but golly, for hay that you know that's gonna keep, that's not too bad at all. Have a little bit of elevation from the shrink. That's manageable, that's pretty good. A little bit of shrink, a little bit of bundle loss, but
Not really picking it up the right direction either.
that's true.